Marvel's first family finally shows up to the MCU in the Fantastic Four First Steps, and there is a lot resting on their retro-futuristic shoulders. They've got all the anxiety of expectant parents and world-protecting superheroes and franchise-resuscitating characters weighing on them as we meet a brand new version of Reed Richards, Sue and Johnny Storm, and Ben Grimm. Happily, director Matt Shakman and the team behind First Steps very capably manage some, but not all, of those concerns in a family dramedy that only stops working when it tries too hard to be a superhero movie. I'm Clint Gage, and this is my review of the Fantastic Four First Steps.
Could you take us through how you defeated Galactus? How we did?
We didn't.
Not yet. Not yet, we didn't.
So, for transparency's sake, here's where I was at mentally going into this movie. I really wanted to either like this movie enough to give it an 8 or a 9 because, I want to have nice things and good movies in my life, or I wanted this movie to be legitimately bad enough to give it a 4 just for the joke. Now, I got neither, as you probably already know if you scroll down to the comments to see that somebody posted the score. So, first, let me say, sorry. Second, let me explain. There is almost an unfair amount of pressure being placed on the Fantastic Four First Steps. Expectations to do things it was most likely never designed to do. Now, thanks to all the things we know about what's coming next for the MCU, most notably a green-cloaked villain played by a deceased genius billionaire philanthropist playboy, Dr. Doom is, after all, both a traditional Fantastic Four villain and the next big thing for Phase 6. So, expectations are pretty high. Now, the good news is, First Steps lives up to most of these expectations. To start with, the actual Fantastic Four are really good. There's a charisma to each of them individually and a chemistry between all of them. It may seem like an obvious thing to say, but they feel like a proper family. And you can tell the actors and director really put the work in to make it so. The scenes with the whole family can deal with heavy questions in one moment and then lighten the mood in the next without ever feeling out of character. I truly bought them as a family unit.
Why are you being weird?
We're not being weird.
Well, I'm doing that weird thing with your face.
In fact, Ben and Johnny are a lot more fun together as the world's greatest uncles than they are apart.
What time is it, Ben?
No, Johnny.
Say it!
I don't wanna!
Ben in particular feels like a lot of his story was cut from the final film. It's not a huge loss because the thing more than does what he needs to do for the movie. If Ebon Moss-Bachrach did lose some of his screen time, it was chiseled down to about the right size. Johnny, meanwhile, gets a little extra to do with a pivotal bit of the story and a little more fire with which to execute it thanks to his interest in the Silver Surfer. Motivation, however, is not in short supply for Johnny or any member of the family for that matter. All 4 of them seem to take their jobs as protectors of Earth very seriously and take pride in doing those jobs well. I also think Pedro Pascal got Reed just right. Reed Richards has always had a lot of potential outcomes in the comics, a lot of different directions in which to stretch as a character. Sometimes that means going full megalomaniacal Illuminati. Other times, he's just a gentle, smart guy trying his best to be a hero. And what's sharp about this version of Reed is that all of those options are still on the table.
We will protect you.
Now, the good and the bad about Pascal's performance is that it can at times seem a little flat. There are campy moments that land in the nervous nerd stereotype arena, but in the next moment, there's something else bubbling underneath it. You can see Reed struggling with problems he can't solve, terrified by all the unknowns he's suddenly faced with.
I don't know.
Reed doesn't do a lot of growing or changing. First Steps doesn't teach him any life-altering lessons, really. But for a character who we presume will have plenty to do in the MCU moving forward, it actually might be the perfect start for him. It feels more like the first episode for him more than a wholly contained movie. But the real star of First Steps is Vanessa Kirby. Sue Storm saves all the days, multiple times throughout the movie. Reed, Johnny, and Ben are tossed aside and incapacitated, but Sue comes through, one time while she's actually in labor. She's fierce and protective and clear-eyed about all the danger her family is in. She's also the only one that can talk to Mole Man, played by Paul Walter Hauser, who absolutely steals a scene right out from under all 4 of the stars. But the point is, Vanessa Kirby has been one of my favorites since she was the best part of Mission Impossible Fallout, and nothing in First Steps changes that. In fact, Sue is set up to be more of a crucial player in the next MCU movies than anybody else in her family. But it's her dynamic with Reed as new parents that really gives this movie its heart. For a couple from an alternate retro-futuristic universe imbued with super-heroic abilities by cosmic radiation, their most impressive power is being super relatable. In fact, there's one argument between the two of them where Sue's manic and exhausted new mom energy is so spot on. It unearthed the fear in me that I hadn't felt since I was a new dad, one that I could see Pascal's face reflecting just as accurately.
You are going to be the best dad. Just kidding. You are out of your depth.
So being a father of two, I really felt First Steps is more or less on-the-nose parenting metaphors, especially the one involving the big bad. Galactus is coming to devour the entire world. But first, he sends a messenger to let you know he's on his way. That's his whole thing.
I herald Galactus.
But that's also basically pregnancy. A positive test, that first ultrasound, these are the parental equivalents of the Silver Surfer riding through the atmosphere and saying, hey, heads up, your world's about to be devoured, time to get your affairs in order.
Your planet is now marked for death.
For 9 months, all you can do is prepare for the worst and try to convince yourself that it's not the end of life as you know it. The First Steps puts Reed and Sue through both of these experiences, though one eternally hungry entity gives them a little more time to prep for his arrival than the other. Rooting the story in something as basic and human as becoming a parent is the smartest move that Shakman and First Steps' 4 accredited screenwriters could have made, even if they're a little less than subtle in doing so. And subtlety is not something they're concerned with. The story is a little nuts. The world of tomorrow today setting is bizarre, but there's some intention at play here. By using some zippy early montages to set up a baseline of outlandishness, First Steps preps us to not overthink the Fantastic Four's ultimate plan to defeat Galactus, a plan that, in hindsight, doesn't really hold up to scrutiny even by comic book standards. Some of that has to do with the pace of the movie. First Steps zooms through its less than 2-hour runtime with an energy that doesn't allow you to stop and ask too many questions. Now, sometimes that can be kind of a band-aid for sloppy filmmaking, but it can also be a savvy use of shorthand. Fortunately, it's more often the latter than the former with this movie. First Steps isn't an origin story. We don't need it to be because we know already. Plus, we get a little recap via the TV show setup we see in the trailers. The more impressive thing is, Matt Shakman and the writers put a little faith in us to pick up what we need and go with the flow. And they keep the flow moving quickly enough that we're not bothered by mentions of super apes or the underground kingdom of Subterranea or time dilation or anything we don't quite get. It's not just Marvel stuff they're assuming we know either. There's a crucial element in one of the big action set pieces that seems to say, hey, do you guys remember Interstellar? This is like that, and we're just going to move on, okay? Like, the way they deploy that type of general pop culture shorthand is not a weakness at all. It's not a bug, it's a feature. It's legitimately refreshing for filmmakers to trust that we'll get it when so many movies tend to over-explain. So there's a lot that really works about this movie. In fact, I'd say there's nothing that's actively or truly wrong with it. But there's not a lot that stands out about it either. And results, of course, will vary from theater to theater, but in my screening, it wasn't a single pop. No jokes had the whole room laughing. There weren't any moments that got a cheer or thrills that got an audible gasp. And I have to say, I don't disagree with the audience. And what's missing in this movie are those capital M moments that superhero movies really need. And I mean this on an emotional level. Nothing in First Steps had me on the verge of tears, either happy or sad. Nothing had me nervous for the survival of the folks on screen. But I also mean this on a technical level. The most heroic-looking shots are in the montages, not in the big climactic events of the film. As visually interesting as all the bubble cars and space-age architecture of Earth 828 is, not to mention the sheer scale of Galactus and his planet-grinding spacecraft, there's a hair that I'll split by saying I didn't find it visually compelling. The actors are giving engaging performances in unique wardrobes on a slick-looking set, but the camera isn't doing much else to help. And there's not a ton of action in this movie either, which is not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, focusing on introducing and fleshing out characters who will presumably be very important to the MCU moving forward is 100% the right call. But the action that is there seems to be leaving some money on the table, so to speak. I want my comic book movies to at least have a couple great comic book worthy images. I want to see those really active frames that convey a ton of energy and emotion and leave an impression. First Steps just doesn't have enough of that for my taste. Honestly, part of the problem I have with it is that The Incredibles already did most of what the Fantastic Four does, only better. I do want to shout out the score, though. Composer Michael Giacchino does a lot of the heavy lifting in one of the moments I actually would count as a hero shot. It's a sequence where the Fantastic Four blasts off to go negotiate with Galactus. There's this wonderful, sweeping, heroic bit of music while the rockets are firing, and it's all smoke and fire and the majesty of slipping the bonds of gravity and soaring into the unknown, seeking adventure. But I got that bit of passion from the music, to be clear, not the visuals. Now, I went into the Fantastic Four First Steps wanting it to do more for the broader MCU, and that's why I think I'm a little disappointed with its specifics. It's impossible not to consider its place within the entire 37-movie, 14 Disney Plus series and counting franchise, and the heralding of what Marvel, I'm sure, hopes will be 2 world-devouring capstones to Phase 6 in the form of Doomsday and Secret Wars. I've been thinking a lot about Thor Ragnarok and how the destruction of Asgard was such a propulsive force to the story. The momentum in the build-up to Infinity War, it gave Thor, a franchise cornerstone, more than just an eye patch to move forward with. It was loaded with stakes. They blew up a whole realm for Odin's sake. That's what I wanted for the Fantastic Four. Blow up planets or get the f*** out is something I actually said out loud less than a week ago. What I got instead was a much quieter family drama, completely unconcerned with moving the MCU ball forward. It does exactly the thing I was preemptively mad about, and yet I can't be completely angry with it. Beyond its obligations to the constellation of movies and shows around it, this is a solid foundation on which to reintroduce Marvel's first family. Wherever they go from here, it'll be on to bigger and better things.
Hold your loved ones close. And speak the words you've been afraid to speak. For your time is short.
Fantastic Four First Steps is getting a 7. This movie is not a 6, nor is it an 8. Most unsettlingly, where bad jokes are concerned, it's certainly not a 4. Neither okay nor great, simply good. Matt Shakman directs a film that's for sure interesting to look at, even if it doesn't quite rise to the scale of its planet-eating antagonist. A force of cosmic nature that doubles as a metaphor for parenting in a way that makes me feel seen as a father. These first steps might not be the great strides I was hoping for, but they are sure footing for Fantastic Four to officially leap into the MCU. For more superheroic reviews, check out what we thought of Superman, and for all things Marvel, MCU, fantastic or otherwise, be sure to subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch.